Hello, can everyone hear me? Great. So my name is Aneeqa. I'm the founder of a company called eporta, and we are bringing great design to life. That's great design that's powered by eporta. So what I'm going to do is spend a little bit of time talking about what we do to begin with, so you get the context, and then go into some of the key trends that we're seeing, not only in our industry, but also just in B2B in general. And I guess the slant's going to be more on the e-commerce side, given that the panel discussion that we're having a little bit later is on e-commerce. I'll make sure I'll leave some time for questions at the end. So before we start, what I want everyone to do is remember the last space that you walked into where you looked around and thought, you know what, this space looks incredible. It's really well designed. It makes me feel great. Can people think of a space? Yeah, some nodding heads. It could be a hotel. It could be a restaurant. It could be someone else's office. It could be someone's home that you got jealous wasn't your home, anything like that, but something that made you feel great as you walked in. So what we do with that space is we aren't the visionary on creating the design for the space, but we actually make it happen through sourcing pieces of furniture. So what we have is an online platform that's on www.eporta.com, where trade buyers of furniture, so that can be interior designers, it can be architects, it can be retailers, it can be property developers, restaurants, hotels, anyone that is fitting out a commercial space or an interior designer or architect who's fitting out a residential space, can connect directly with lots of manufacturers around the world. So this is people that make wonderful products. And what we do is streamline that whole sourcing process by making it better, cheaper, and faster. So better because you have a selection of 1,600 manufacturers, which is the largest selection online for furniture, or actually online or offline for furniture products. So you have more access to great products. It's cheaper because when you are a trade buyer of furniture, and actually anyone in this room who is a founder of a business, you are a trade buyer of furniture, so you can access trade prices on furniture, which is something that a lot of people actually know. So if you are a trade buyer, you can get up to 50% off all furniture products globally if you go through a trade network versus going through retail. And that means that if you've got a budget for your office space, for instance, actually what you're getting is either double the quality of the products for the same price, or you're actually halving the budget that you're dealing with, which is great. So that's how it is cheaper for people. And faster is we streamlined the entire process of doing a project. So let's say you are a property developer and you are doing a project end-to-end on an interior fit-out. Rather than going to lots of different suppliers worldwide, emailing them, calling them, sometimes even faxing them in our industry, that still happens. Actually, what we do is streamline that whole process and put it all in one place so that you can access it super effectively and super efficiently. So a couple of projects that we've done recently, just so that you can get a flavor of the sorts of things that we do. As the speaker before mentioned, we're in 85 different countries with companies around, it's about 10,000 companies who utilize us today. A couple of the projects that we've recently completed are an office space for Accenture. So on the left here, you can see this is Jenny Jones, who's an interior architecture studio. It's about a 30-person studio in London. Accenture approached her and said, no one wants to be an accountant anymore. No one wants to work at Accenture. How do we make that better? How do we make people want to come and work in our office space? And so she created a space, as you can see at the top, that was more enticing to the employees or potential employees that they wanted to basically serve. And the way that they did that was powered by eporta. So all the actual FF&E procurement side, think the unsexy bit of the actual design, but the really important bit was actually powered through our platform. Similarly, on the right over here, that's Courtney. Courtney is an in-house interior designer at a company called The Collective. Some of you might have heard of it. It's a co-living space and a co-working, set of spaces now, not just one space. And actually, that's one of the things that we're seeing a lot in our industry. So the co-working spaces, the co-living spaces, basically property as a service in general, from the likes of WeWork, Notel, are really creating a scene for the design world and making sure that the property that is being served to customers is really design-eccentric. And so actually looking at what Courtney did, again, Courtney is powering her global design projects through The Collective using the eporta platform. So 3 trends, let's just go back a second. So the 3 trends that I'll talk about really quickly are trends that we've seen through just me starting the business and having to iterate on what it is that we're doing as a business. And actually, as I said, we'll focus more on the e-com side to begin with. But I really believe that trends come from what people want, right? So what do users actually want? And then as you aggregate that together, all of a sudden, it becomes a trend. So the first trend that we've seen is people want you to do more than just help me buy stuff online. So gone are the days where you could say, you know what, I actually can't find this thing online. Why don't I create a shop front, curate a collection, and sell online? Actually, what people will do is they'd much rather buy it on Amazon, or they'll be an aggregator in whatever sector it is, if it's a sizable industry, that has some kind of e-com solution that allows people to buy online. And so what people want is they want more than just purchasing online. And that could be analytics for predictability on help me choose what it is I want online, or help me curate a collection, but they need more than just, here's a website that sells products. The second thing which is related to this is in the B2B context, it's I need e-com and SaaS together to be truly helpful. And this is one of the things that I found when I first started the business and was pitching to investors about 4 years ago. It was when I was talking about what we were doing, they'd say, well, are you a marketplace business? Are you an e-com marketplace business? Or are you a SaaS software tool? And the reality is we do all of those things on the platform, and it's because the user needs those things. So if we're thinking about the context of our user, which is an interior designer or a property developer, or it could be a procurement person within any business that you guys work in, what they're doing is they have a job to be done. And through that job to be done, they need certain tools that enable them to do it. And that could be purchasing products, which is a function of what they need to do, but also managing the entire project or doing something else as well. So what I'd always say is, well, actually, what we're doing is serving the user's needs. And serving the user's needs means we're not marketplace, we're not SaaS software, we're kind of a combination of both, and we're creating a product that actually does that. And the third one that I'm super passionate about, because I think that great design makes people happy day to day, is actually, and this is very specific to our industry, but I think touches everyone in this room and everyone in their day-to-day life. It's people really want a great space that feels like home. So back 5-6 years ago, when WeWork first, well, actually 8 years ago, when WeWork first started, when you walked into your first WeWork space, everyone was like, wow, this is incredible. They've just revolutionized the way that an office looks. And now, roll forward, if someone has a bad office space, actually it's the opposite. It's, oh, this doesn't actually look that great, because the hygiene factor has moved up. People want great space for attracting people, more productivity from employees, even credibility as a business. Having a great space gives you credibility as a business. And so what we're seeing is that people are understanding, if I have great space, there's a return on investment for having great space. And that could be, if I'm a hotel, I can charge more for the rooms. If I'm a restaurant, I can charge more for the food. But actually, design has ROI benefits. And that is a huge trend that we're seeing across the board, not only in actual interior design, but also in design across the board. So even if it's in presentation design, or obviously UX, UI design, big theme now as well, or heightened in terms of the way that people think about the actual UI aspects of it. But great design really does have ROI benefit. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Aneeqa. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to cover? Oh, perfect. Super. All right, I'll just come over here. Here you go.
It's a little bit of off topic, but no AI involved?
No AI involved. There is actually some AI involved. What can I say? So when you go on the platform, the recommendation tool that we have has some AI involved. It's a piece that we're building up at the moment with the data set that we have. But because we have a very large data set in the industry, absolutely, we'd be stupid not to be working on that.
Great, perfect. One more here as well.
Hi.
Hi.
Since you're all over 80 different countries, how do you handle the different cultures and tastes in the
Love
service
this question.
that you do?
Great question. So we are, it's a challenge, or was a challenge. So we made a decision quite early on to be totally style agnostic as a business. So if you are wanting Scandinavian high design, we cater to it. If you need, like the Middle Eastern culture, for instance, is totally different in terms of style, which is what you're alluding to. And the styles that we have on the platform with the brands and the suppliers that we work with is completely different for that reason. So the way that we get around the cultural differences on design is by having the inventory that serves the customer, and then using our recommendation tool to power the recommendations on that person. But culturally, in terms of, we're still only in the UK language, basically, on the actual platform. But what we're finding is, because we're B2B, a lot of businesses will have someone who speaks English, and so when they're communicating buyers and sellers together, they can communicate through that mechanism. But it is a challenge, but actually, the industry itself is pretty global. Our day one buyer was a Spanish buyer buying from a Hungarian supplier, and it's always been global from that perspective. So I think people are used to utilizing that.
Perfect. I think we have a couple more questions.
How do you solve the logistic problem? Because
which problem, sorry?
Logistics, because sometimes it's easier to buy local, or
Great question. So the logistics problem is a real one. Because, again, if you're going directly to supply, so you're going direct to manufacturer, it's unlikely the manufacturer that you want will be in the country that you're in. So if it's a UK-based buyer, it's highly unlikely that they're buying exclusively from UK designers. It will be like 50 different suppliers from around the world. And so on the B2B side, the suppliers are used to shipping product globally. Sometimes it's difficult intra-continent, but within a continent, they're pretty used to doing it. So what we do is power the supplier to enable them to do the shipment. We don't take charge of the logistics and delivery. But what we do have, and this is something that we learn, again, through the process of working with lots of customers, is some customers just need an integrated logistics solution where you turn up one day and then the office or the co-working space or whatever it is just looks great. And then we have a logistics team within our department that will facilitate that. So majority of it is done dropship between buyer and seller. It's not white glove delivery, so that's the difference. It's not going to be someone coming in, getting all the stuff out, it looks great. It might be just dropped on your doorstep, but trade are pretty used to just dealing with that, and then you'd hire someone to basically work on it. But the difference is you get 50% off, so it makes sense to do.
Okay, perfect. That question was actually so good that it was our next question as well. So does anyone have any final? Oh, perfect. Okay. You're making me walk here, Gabriel.
Hi. So you've obviously built a marketplace and a software platform at the same time, a combination of different things. But you've got a two-sided marketplace. It's obviously very hard to build liquidity on both sides when you're just starting. How did you approach that?
Great question. So we started marketplace and then built SaaS products on marketplace, which actually is unusual. A lot of people start SaaS and then they build marketplace after. So we knew that supply was the hardest to get on board because furniture companies hate online. They hate anything online. Well, for the most part. Now it's changing because the industry's changing. So at the beginning, I came to Portugal, believe it or not. So no one in the UK would work with us. So I came to Portugal, drove a car around lots of factories in Portugal, and basically said that I was an agent for furniture, personally, as an individual, and that I would help sell products into the UK, and that's how we first started. So then we started getting some suppliers on board, and then you start getting some of the key people, and then it all kind of trickles down. So we started very heavy supply. We had to hack it, which was wing it. I crashed my car in the middle of Porto. It was really embarrassing. It was awful, but that's what we had to do. And then over time, basically built out the SaaS product.
Perfect, thanks.
Great.
If I had more time, I'd ask about the car crash, but I think we're going to have to leave it there.
You don't want to.
Thanks, Aneeqa. Big round of applause, please.